and I was on my way to Joshua Tree to camp, but I was still on the 40 and I was heading towards Roy's in Amboy. And I called them and I was like, hey, I'm almost out of gas. Like, I need you to stay open for me because they were about to close.
This is the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, 30-minute conversations with women who have found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 120. Find out more about the podcast at desertladydiaries.com or engage with guests, listeners, and me on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries. Cynthia Marie has been welding professionally for 15 years. She's welded for custom furniture, theater, television, and special effects shops in New York, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas, including a 3-month work trip to install the 2016 Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. She now resides in the high desert, concentrating on her home shop in hopes of teaching and spreading the joy of welding. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
As always, the first question is, what was your first experience with desert?
Well, I was taking my first cross-country trip. I flew to Seattle, and I wanted to see the desert because I never had. So we drove straight south, basically to Las Vegas, because I wanted to see what Hunter S. Thompson was all about. And as we got there, we must have drove through the night because it was sunrise. And we got out of the car. I was getting ready to take a photo because I still had my film camera, and my lens was cracked. And I couldn't take the photo.
Oh, no.
So just now I have this memory of being in the desert and not being able to take that gorgeous photo. But it was the first time I had ever seen anything like that.
And do you remember what that felt like to just look at that?
It was just, unbelievable because I grew up in New York, so I'm used to houses everywhere, no open spaces.
And the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
I'm remembering now my first trip to the desert. I landed in Phoenix, and I remember looking out the plane window thinking, is that a billboard? Because those mountains do not look real.
Yeah.
So then fast forward to your first experience with this Joshua Tree Mojave Desert. What was that?
Well, once again, I was driving cross country because I love doing that. I've done it 6 times.
Wow.
I think. Yeah, just go back and forth. I was doing Route 66 because I was moving to Los Angeles from New York, and I was on the 40 trying to hit all the spots, and I didn't realize how far apart the exits were, and I was running out of gas, and I was on my way to Joshua Tree to camp, but I was still on the 40 and I was heading towards Roy's in Amboy. And I called them and I was like, hey, I'm almost out of gas. Like, I need you to stay open for me because they were about to close.
Oh, wow.
So they stayed open for me, and I paid a lot of money for a little bit of gas. But, very grateful. And then I was on my way to Joshua Tree, and we showed up there at nighttime, and it just looked like I was underwater. I'd never seen anything like it because the headlights were shining on the trees, and I was like, where am I?
It's pretty amazing, right? Yeah.
And then we woke up that morning, and it was a completely different world.
Yeah. It's funny, a number of women that I've interviewed, particularly the military wives, seem to come in here at night and don't really see what's going on, and they don't go in the park, so they don't have the experience that you did, but they have that same experience of coming in at night and then the next day seeing what is or isn't around them.
Yeah. We woke up in a tent. It was the beginning of July. It was super warm. We woke up in like a panic, packed up our stuff, got back in the car and drove because we were like, oh my God, it is so hot.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It was...
You weren't ready for it.
No.
Yeah. So where did you go once you left the park?
We were headed on our way to LA because my cross-country Route 66 moving to LA road trip was sadly coming to an end.
Okay. So you're in LA for how long?
About a little over 6 years.
Okay. Yeah. And where did you live while you were there?
Highland Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I watched it get really crazy, and rents got really high.
Right. So what was it that made you decide, I need to go somewhere else?
The fact that I knew I would never be able to have my own welding studio set up there. I worked almost 7 days a week to just pay the rent and have fun, and I wouldn't be able to afford a shop and a place to live. It was just, I feel like when I moved to LA, it started getting really, really expensive.
Yeah, because I think I got there in 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I saw that a lot downtown because I ended up moving downtown in 2013, and all the high rises coming in and the rents going up, and I don't think we're alone. I think there are a lot of people that are out here or in other places that just said, this is not a sustainable lifestyle for me. It's not what I want my life to be, working 7 days a week just to try and survive. You weren't even getting ahead. So
I was in downtown when I first moved to LA.
Oh, were you? Where downtown?
Skid Row. I wasn't on Skid Row. I was living in a warehouse.
Okay.
On 5th and San Pedro.
Oh, okay.
So it was like really in there.
Yeah, you were for sure.
But then I got the place in Highland Park because it was affordable. Mm-hmm. And then within a couple of years, it was unaffordable.
And it happened so quickly. Even rent control, because my place downtown wasn't under rent control, and I didn't know that until after I moved in. Mm-hmm. And then I would get these notices about the increases, and I thought, wow, so if this continues at this pace, by the time I get, 3-4 years into this, it's going to be, I'm not going to be able to stay here. Did you have other places on like your list of, okay, I need to move, this is where I need to look?
Not really. The first time I came to Joshua Tree, I just knew that I just loved it. And I just always had this feeling that I wanted to move here at some point. And it just happened. That point was a little over a year ago. So right. I'm here. But I've always loved small towns. I went to art school in a very small town, smaller than Joshua Tree. It was like 800 people population.
Wow, where was that?
That was in Alfred, New York, in between Binghamton and Buffalo.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So it was kind of similar to here, where the next town over is like 10 miles in either direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I kind of fell in love with that type of lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I lived in New York and Los Angeles and decided that I wanted the small town again.
Yeah. So when you grew up in New York, were you in that area near Binghamton and Buffalo growing up? Okay.
I grew up in the Hudson Valley, so I was just like 15 miles north of Manhattan.
Okay.
So it was like super suburbs. But cool, because I could take the bus into the city.
Yeah.
And, as a young kid, it was like super hip and awesome to be in the city.
Yeah. Well, the same for me. I mean, there was always a point where I thought I would live in the city.
Me too.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be a New York City girl.
Yeah, because I grew up in Jersey.
Oh, I was born in Jersey.
Oh, always
Bergen County.
Oh, okay. I was in Somerset, so you're a little further north. There's something still about that city feel, like there's a part of me that still likes it, so I'm glad I get to go in and visit when I can, and I keep saying, well, life isn't over yet. You may end up in Manhattan at some point.
Yeah,
who knows?
Some point. Yeah. It's just when I was there, it was too expensive. Unless you wanted to live in the boonies and take the train like an hour and a half to work, it just seemed not fun.
Right. Well, even here I find it's amazing how many people get on that Metrolink in San Bernardino into LA every day.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Well, when you moved here, did you know anyone?
I had one friend.
Okay.
She was in downtown, and I stayed with her. That's how I ended up there.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And I met people through her, and I applied for a bunch of jobs welding, and I landed a couple of them. So.
Great. How about when you moved here?
When I moved here, it's kind of funny. I had contacted the owner of Hicksville Trailer Palace in Joshua Tree about working there a couple years ago, and it didn't work out at that time because we both weren't in the right place to move and train and all that. So when I moved here, I messaged him and I'm like, hey, I'm in Joshua Tree full time and I'm a welder. If you need anything welded at Hicksville, let me know. I'm here. Turns out he did. He called me. He's like, yeah, if you could weld some things on the houseboat we have going. And also, I need a new innkeeper. So it ended up that I scored the innkeeper job. My boyfriend and I did. And got to weld at Hicksville. So it all happened within like the first month of me moving here. So it was kind of awesome.
Yeah.
I felt very lucky. Things just fell into place.
Yeah. For someone listening who doesn't know what Hicksville is, without giving away the location, at penalty of death.
No GPS, no geotagging.
Right. Because
It's just a secluded, it's a sacred place. Only guests are allowed there. We don't want drive-by visitors, people lurking on the place. It's just secluded and special.
Right.
But it's been here for 10 years. It's the second trailer motel in the United States.
Okay.
The first one's in Arizona, called the Shady Dell.
Okay. Do same owners, or is it just modeled after? Okay.
It's just modeled after that.
Gotcha.
So it's 8 vintage trailers that are themed with one off-the-grid solar cabin.
That's cool.
And a train car.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So it is a very cool place. There's a pool, there's a hot tub, there's a ball pit that's new.
Oh, okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
Fun.
Kind of crazy.
And they have a location now in Idlewild?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hicksville Pines.
Oh, okay. Cool. So you could do your desert or your alpine experience
you could get,
either way.
Well, snow in both now.
Right. Apparently.
Yeah.
Talk to me about welding and how that all started for you.
Well, I went to art school in upstate New York, and I went for printmaking because I was into illustration. I like drawing. I'd never taken sculpture. They had the sophomores, you had to take a sculpture course.
Oh.
You had to take something outside of your comfort zone. So I took glass blowing and metal fab. And turns out I loved metal fab because I dropped all of my classes. I mean, I didn't drop them. Like, right. I just changed
direction,
my concentration over to metal fab. I did an independent study with a teacher. I built this gigantic pumpkin carriage that I could wheel around town, which I still have here on my property. And I was just hooked. After college, I started working at a custom furniture place. And then I got into building theater sets, and then I worked at a shop. We built sets for the Colbert Report and The Daily Show, just like fun little quirky news stations. So I did that for like 3 years, and then I moved to LA, and I worked in just as big of shops building sets for Beyonce and Katy Perry and Britney Spears, and like all the big acts. There are Las Vegas shows. I've done stuff for Coachella.
And Rio de Janeiro.
And Rio, yeah. I went to Rio for 3 months installing the sets for the NBC studios for the Olympics. And I worked on Copacabana Beach and the regular NBC headquarters. But that was probably the most challenging job.
What was the challenge about it?
I mean, being far from home. And, it didn't really have... Now that I've done it, I have a lot more experience. I would have got international phone service. There was really no way for me to connect back home except if I was in the really awful Wi-Fi signal at my hotel. So
no.
It was just like a little tough in that aspect. And, I didn't have a way to do laundry. We had to take a cab to like the laundromat, and then you'd have to sit there and wait. And we worked crazy hours 7 days a week. So it was kind of, in your off time, you don't want to go do laundry.
No, exactly.
So I'd be doing laundry.
In Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah. I'd be doing laundry in my sink, and, it was really humid there, so nothing would really get cleaned or dry properly. It was just, I was really excited to come home and do regular laundry.
Said almost no one ever.
Yeah. Especially, because I'm working in, like, wood and metal. And
of course, yeah.
It was just
dirty and...
But it was cool. I mean, I got to walk by Michael Phelps. He was really tall.
Yeah. I can imagine. In this field of welding, what is the percentage of female to male?
It's pretty low. I have never worked with another welder. I've worked with a female carpenter and an electrician, but never a welder. So until I started my Instagram, I didn't realize there were so many females out there welding. So that was kind of inspiring. I was like, wow, where have they been? I've been welding for 15 years, and I've never only come across a bunch of men in the field.
Right. Was it difficult and challenging when you were learning? Because I imagine there weren't many women when you were learning either. Yeah,
I mean, in art school it was nice because there were females in the class and I had friends there, but outside of art school, when I started in the real world, the custom furniture was a great place to start because it was more artistic. I found when I got into more of the production shops, it was a little more difficult. If you didn't know your stuff, you'd be kicked out.
Oh, wow.
Especially as a female. You're judged right away. Like, everyone's looking at me and my welds. They'll be like, I'll be welding and I'll lift up the mask and there'll be someone watching me. You know, they don't do that to the other guys.
Right.
So I had to get good.
And how did you do that?
Practice. I wanted to become a TIG welder, and that's, you know, the most precise, people say the most difficult type of welding, because you need very steady hands, you need to control the heat very well. I became an aluminum TIG welder, so I'd walk into the shop and say I was an aluminum TIG welder, and the guys would be like, all right, prove it. So I would.
Yeah. So the difference between it's TIG and then there's also MIG, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are the differences between the two?
MIG is a wire feed, so you have a gun, you only need one hand, you press a trigger, and the arc starts as the wire hits the...
And the arc is like the flame, if you will? Or
yeah. And then TIG is, you're holding a torch that heats up the metal, and it's controlled by a foot pedal, and then in your other hand you have filler rod, so you're filling the metal, and you're making the weld as you're heating it up. So you're using two hands and a leg. So you need to multitask.
Yeah. Wow. And be really focused.
Yeah.
Which I guess the mask is helpful for that because it's kind of over your head and over your eyes and
blocks
it keeps you like
out.
Blinded, right? Until you lift it up and someone's standing next to you watching
like,
what you're doing.
Hey. Be like, look.
Right. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's too bad. But we get used to that, right?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but we've kind of live with it.
But then when I started getting really good, I'd be like, come over here and check this out. Like, look at my weld. So
that's awesome.
That happened.
So up here in the desert, besides working, you know, at the Hicksville welding, what else are you doing? Are you back to more artistic work? Do you still take jobs? I actually think I saw you posted on Instagram that you were doing something in downtown LA. You were welding something. So I guess I'm wondering what your ratio now is of artistic work versus production work, if you will.
I want to take a break from the production work, which is why I was okay with leaving that job and moving out here. But on occasion, I told them that when they're busy and slammed, that to contact me, because I would come back and work for a week,
nice.
You know, and get some overtime in, get back into that. You know, I just didn't want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
So when that happens, I'll do that. And then I want to focus more on my home shop. I have set up my own personal welding studio. I want to start making art again because that's why I got into welding. And all of a sudden it turned into my full-time job that I didn't expect. And then I've been doing it for so long that I kind of forgot what it's like to make my own work.
So what are some of the things that you're anxious to make? Will you go back to doing the furniture, or are there other things that you're working on?
There'll be furniture. I mean, I'd like to do furniture. I want to do all sorts of different stuff. I just got a plasma cutter, so I'm super excited about doing some intricate work. So.
How has it been for you? You said it's 1.5 years now in the desert?
A little over a year.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved here around New Year's of 2019.
You've got a full season, all the seasons you've experienced.
Yep.
How is it working out? How does it feel to be here?
It feels great. I really didn't think the summer was as terrible as some people say. You know, I mean, it's a little hot. You get a little tired.
Right, yeah.
You might want to stay inside.
Right.
We weren't hiking during the summer because it was just too much. But we moved here right at the beginning of January, and we caught that big snowfall in February, so that was incredibly magical.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know that could happen.
No.
You know, we got like 8 inches of snow. My boyfriend and I built a snowman in our front yard.
That's awesome. Is he from the East Coast too, or
No, he's from Orange County.
Oh, okay.
So he was so stoked. He's like, my truck's never had this much snow on it, and we're in the desert.
Well, I think being from the East Coast, we know what like snow can be.
Yeah.
When it sits on the side of the road for 2 weeks and gets all gray and dirty and ugly.
I know.
But here it was so nostalgic for me just to sit here and look out the window and watch it come down and that hush that always happens.
The town shuts down.
Exactly, and everything's quiet.
Yeah, I miss that. I like that.
Yeah, so it's nice, and then, you know, in 2 days it's gone, and we're back to business.
Yeah, you don't have to dig your car out.
Right.
I mean, people don't understand how terrible it can be.
Yeah, exactly. So when you moved here, did you know anybody here? Oh, well, you knew the guy at Hicksville, sort of.
Sort of,
Right.
yes. Through emailing. I didn't know him personally.
Right. And then how did you get involved, with the community and start meeting people?
My landlord at the first place we were living is friends with Kevin Wong from the Desert Institute. So he got us involved asked us if we wanted to go to the volunteer training course, and we did. And that was within the first month we were here.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, we just moved in, we're going to the volunteer training, and then all of a sudden we're signed up for 6 courses with the Desert Institute. So,
Does he get a commission? I mean, what was going on there?
No, he was just buddies with Kevin, so it was cool. And we've met all these awesome people. We've gone on a bunch of hikes, and I went on the wildflowers class last year, which was super beautiful. We just went on a hike this past Monday to Monument Peak, or we summited Monument Peak. It was like the first mountain I climbed. It was really cool. It was me, my boyfriend, and Kevin Powell led the hike.
Okay.
And it was 1,700-foot elevation gain.
Holy smokes.
Almost 7 miles. So
Wow.
I was definitely proud of myself.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else? Do you go out to any of the music things, art things, any of that stuff? Did you do art tours?
I didn't do art tours.
Okay.
I went to check it out, but I'm thinking maybe this year do it. We were too new last year to, we were still moving. We had a storage unit and a house, and we were back and forth.
How long did that process take coming from LA overall once you made the decision and found your place?
It took a few months. My boyfriend and I were coming out here beforehand. We got the storage unit before we found our place. It took a while because not only did I have my stuff, but my boyfriend runs a skateboard distribution brand and company, and we had to move his entire warehouse out to the desert.
Holy smokes.
So it was...
I bet that was a money saver for him, though, in his business.
Yeah, because, paying rent and then having a warehouse. So it was a long process, but it feels good to go through everything because we've gone through everything, and we have what we need. And
have you had any experiences that you feel like you weren't prepared for coming to the desert?
No real major ones. I feel like I've been pretty lucky as everything's happened, with volunteering and then getting the job at Hicksville, and everything kind of just flowed. I wasn't fully aware of how dusty everything would be, and that's something that I've noticed in the house. And
Right.
And the internet connection is a little difficult sometimes, goes in and out. It's just stuff like that. Nothing too major.
No snake problems or any, crazy critter stories or...
We had a snake in our backyard, but it was just doing its thing. I think it had just eaten something big.
Oh.
Yeah.
It had a lump.
It had a lump.
Oh my goodness.
But the coolest thing ever was we had a bobcat come through our property. It was like early morning, and Matt, my boyfriend, was like, "Oh my God, look out the window. I think that's a bobcat." And I was like, "Oh my God, it's so cute." And it came like right up to the window.
Oh, wow.
And I took a photo of it, and it's looking right at my phone.
Wow, that's really cool.
So we think it might live around the area because we've seen it twice.
That's cool. Yeah, they're beautiful. I finally saw one. I think it'll be almost a year now. Because ironically, it happened shortly after a good friend of mine here passed away.
Oh.
And there's a part of me that felt like it was him visiting. I just wanted to say goodbye. Because I haven't seen it again since. And it wasn't here.
Oh, wow.
It was at a house where I house and cat sit up closer to the park. It was super cool, though, and really beautiful. I saw the bighorn sheep.
Oh.
It was my very first trip to the park, and I wouldn't have even noticed them except a guy that was in this parking lot of this one area got out his camera and was focusing. I'm like, what is he taking a picture of? And then I looked up and I saw them. So I feel like I've seen like all of the major desert animals that are here in this area.
Haven't seen a bighorn sheep, but
oh, okay.
I was hoping to see one on our hike.
Yeah, I would think on some of these hikes you'll eventually see them. Yeah.
Not yet.
No.
One day.
Only having been here a year so far, are there any things that you've noticed that are different about your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not as hectic. I'm not sitting in traffic for half my day to get to and from work. I have more time to work on what I'm interested in. Yeah, I mean, it's been a great change.
And what are some of those things that you're interested in that you've got time to work on now?
I mean, building my own welding shop. You know, I've always worked for someone else, so I put all my energy and focus into building my own shop, and so many women have asked me if I would be interested in teaching. So I said, yeah, why don't I try to put something together? So I'm actually teaching my first lesson tomorrow.
Awesome.
I have 2 ladies coming.
That's cool.
And we're going to make some cool welding projects.
That's fun. Well, and I imagine there's a lot to purchase and tables to be set up and all that kind of stuff that takes time to...
Welding's definitely an expensive hobby. But hopefully it's not just a hobby. You know, it's never... Right. It was, I guess, a hobby for me, and then it became a full-time thing, and I want to keep it in my life. I don't.
Yeah, right.
I like it, and I'm good at it. So.
Now, you know there's at least one other welder here. Yeah. Have you met Gubby?
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're Instagram friends, and we met right when I first moved here. I messaged her, and I'm like, hey, let's get together. So now, we hang out and talk, and she's actually from, like, the town next to me in New York.
You are kidding.
Yeah, I'm just like 5 years older or something, so we didn't hang out in the same
circles. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah, because we exchanged phone numbers and we had the same area code, and I was like, hey, what is going on here? I was like, both welders, we're both here, and we have the same area code.
That's so like crazy.
East Coast.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of us out here, which is interesting. You wonder, why was I born on that side if I'm ending up here, you know? But who knows the answers to those questions? Not us, obviously. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today. Thanks for coming and being on. But before you go, I would like you, we have a new method of choosing the numbers for the Diary Unlocked questions. I took some, I guess they would be considered almost like bingo markers, and then I wrote numbers on either side of them, and then you can randomly select 2, which will be 4 questions, and then I will read the questions before we sign off. Okay, so now, let's see. Before you read them, let me get my question sheet. Okay, so the first 2 are 32 and 17, so I'm going to go ahead and read the questions, and if this is the first time that you're listening to the podcast, these questions will be available to the Patreon supporters of the podcast, and it's called Diary Unlocked. These are a little deeper questions than what we get into on the main interview, or some of them are just silly questions. If you're interested in supporting the podcast in that way, go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and sign up to be a patron. You'll not only get access to Cynthia's answers to these questions, but the entire back catalog of Diary Unlocked episodes from the beginning of 2019, and that'll keep you busy for a while. So the first one is number 32, which will be, you're having a rough day. What do you do, and how do you turn it around? And then 17 is, in your lifetime, has there been a relationship or job you stayed in too long? How did you decide to move on? And now I need you to flip those over so I can see the other 2 questions. Number 12 is your top 3 favorite pizza toppings. Ooh. And then 47 is, you find $100 bill on the ground. What do you do with it? So if you're listening and you want to hear Cynthia's answers to those questions, again, go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and sign up for the Patreon support option. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I've got shout-outs to Eric L. Eric, it was great to meet you at Soul Connection. Thanks for coming in. Can't wait to hear what you think about The Desert Was Home. And a shout-out to Luana L. Thank you so much for signing up for the episode newsletter. I appreciate you. If you would like to receive an email alerting you to a new episode of Desert Lady Diaries, just like Luana, go to desertladydiaries.com and click on the newsletter button. If you're interested in podcasting and local to Joshua Tree, I want to let you know that I'll be teaching a podcast basics class as part of Copper Mountain College's spring community education classes. The podcasting class is 4 consecutive Saturday mornings starting February 29th, and each class is 90 minutes from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. The cost is $140, and if you'd like to sign up or check out the other classes being offered, visit www.cmccd.edu, click on the Prospective Students tab, and find Community Education in that menu. If you participated in the listener survey last summer, I want you to know I heard you about the merchandise. You can now find Desert Lady Diary t-shirts, mugs, tote bags, etc. at desertladydiaries.threadless.com. That's like no thread. Threadless.com, or go to desertladydiaries.com and click on the merch button, and it will take you to the Threadless website. And I see some folks have already grabbed some t-shirts, so if that was you, thank you very much. And would you take a photo and tag Desert Lady Diaries on Facebook or Instagram? That would be really cool, and that way I can thank you personally. This podcast is funded through the generosity of listeners like you. Join and help support great storytelling by going to desertladydiaries.com and click on the support page. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.